Every year, as the constellations rotate slowly behind and a little bit faster than the sun, advancing about 1 degree per day, they appear from our perspective to make one full rotation, returning to almost precisely the same point on the same date the following year. And every 72 years, the constellation behind the sun on a given date will fall behind, moving backwards or retrograde by 1 degree. Interestingly, the number 72 is the number you get when you divide a circle into 5 equal parts, the pentagram. This means that in 2,000 or 3,000 years, depending on the size of the constellation, the sun will appear to have fallen backwards an entire constellation. And roughly every 26,000 years, that pattern reaches its completion and it begins again. This 26,000 year period of time is known as the Great Cycle. The Great Cycle is then divided into 12 shorter periods, as the sun appears to move in retrograde through the 12 zodiacal constellations on a particular date. And each of these smaller 2,000 to 3,000 year periods, depending again on the size of the constellation, is called an astrological age. And there's significant controversy about whether or not we're currently still in the age of Pisces or already in the age of Aquarius. Fact is that this year, 2023, on the astronomical vernal equinox, March 20th, the sun was at the 10th degree of the constellation of Pisces as it rose over the eastern horizon, which means that according to the patterns of the sun and the constellations, we are still pretty firmly within the age of Pisces, although we are approaching the final or anaretic phase of this age. We might also say we're in the middle of the mutable phase of the age of Pisces, getting ready to transition into the age of Aquarius. By these calculations, the age of Pisces would have begun about 2,300 years ago, about 300 years before Christ. And this would make sense because the first few degrees would have been transitional, leading into an event that would mark the beginning of the age of Pisces, the fish, which clearly seems to be related to Jesus in the New Testament. But this topic is controversial, and people do disagree about what age we're actually in right now. I'm not sure how anyone can argue that we're already in the age of Aquarius right now, but they do. Some people claim that the Great Conjunction on the winter solstice in 2020 happened in Aquarius, and that's why we're in the age of Aquarius right now. The problem with that is that you can look right here at this picture I took myself of Saturn and Jupiter, clearly in Sagittarius, moving toward Capricorn in August of 2020. In reality, the Great Conjunction of 2020 happened in the intermediate zone between the constellations of Sagittarius and Capricorn, education and empire. Even so, these great conjunctions between Saturn and Jupiter happen about every 20 years, so they can't be the primary determinant that marks these transitions in the great 26,000-year cycle. The fact is, the sun was at 10 degrees Pisces on the equinox this year, and the constellations lag by 1 degree every 72 years. So if that's the determining factor that denotes the transitions between ages, and I think that it is, then we won't technically enter the age of Aquarius for another 720 years, somewhere around the year 2850. So you have to ask yourself, if we're already in the age of Aquarius, does it really feel to you like we've already gone through a great awakening? Does it feel like humanity is already living within a time of enlightenment and wisdom? It's ironic to me that the so-called progressives of today are actually pushing human consciousness backwards, the exact opposite of being progressive, into secularism, depravity, and moral relativism. And the ruling class will always block direct access to God because the ruling class wants to be your God. So it definitely does not feel to me like humanity has already completed a great spiritual awakening. It feels like we have a great opportunity right now to accelerate the process, but it also feels like we have a lot of work ahead of us. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not already feeling the reverberations of the approaching age of Aquarius. After all, we're coming up to the tail end of this age. But it does mean, in my view, that we should probably be careful not to get ahead of ourselves. Pisces is the constellation most associated with spiritual awakening. It's a mutable water sign symbolized by 2 fish connected by a rope or string, and the fish are pointed in different directions. To me, when we enter a Piscean environment, which can be any time, it doesn't have to be when the sun is there, but the events and circumstances and experiences we encounter will tend to be polarizing and elicit strong emotional responses, with the purpose, I think, of transforming us spiritually. And this, I think, is the objective of the soul's journey through the realm of Pisces, which is symbolized by the sun moving through this region in the sky. These are times when we have to learn how to let go of our attachments to particular beliefs, and sometimes this means we have to allow entire worldviews to crumble and fall apart. The age of Pisces, to me, is associated with a great awakening, one that I believe began a little over 2,000 years ago, marked in time by the birth, life, death, and resurrection of Christ. The great spiritual awakening has been growing stronger, little by little, ever since. And I think right now we have to make sure as many people as possible take the necessary steps to complete this process of spiritual awakening, focusing our attention inward and quieting down and waiting for that direct experience of the divine or God or Christ. And I think when a large enough percentage of people on this planet have taken that action and gone through that process, we'll reach a point of population inversion, and nothing will be able to stop what comes next. And that is what I think will correspond to this transition into the age of Aquarius.